Good evening, everybody. The sound tapping on the microphone is one method of getting your attention. Very nice that you're all here. I don't see you because I have these lights in my face, so I imagine there are the few thousands of digital humanists in the world. I know it's only something like 800 of you, but it's enough and you represent all of them. Very welcome to this Global Digital Humanities Conference, 2023 edition. We have a program before we get this one thing you are really waiting for, the keynote by Sarah Kenderdine. There is a bit of welcoming by me, which will be a series of thanks. Welcoming by authorities and people who like that you are coming here and that DH is happening in Graz. And welcoming by the ADHO, certainly, who is the reason why we are here at all. And welcoming by the program committee, by the program chairs, because they invented the ideas and the content you get, and this is the perfect path to Sarah and the content we are waiting for. So let's start. With this thanks series, there's a problem. Because there are so many people to thank and so many organizations to thank that if you start to clap for every single of these namings, you will get exhausted. That's why Walter prepared something. The nice thing is you're all trained in following Walter's signs and Walter's authority. He has developed this in the last few weeks and months. So please wait for his sign. I'll start with my thanks to the sponsors. Sponsors like Gale, which is engaged in DH since long. Sponsors like our university, and unfortunately our rector is even here and will welcome you. Sponsors like our humanities faculty. Sponsors like DARIA, European DARIA, sponsors like the German DH associations, sponsors like the city of Graz again. Fortunately, we have a representative of the city of Graz here, Herr Rahm. Sponsors like the tourism support from the city of Graz, which in reality did not only support financially, but really even actively, practically. The country of Steiermark, you know, Austria has this federal structure. The sponsors like the European Clarine Association, sponsors like the Austrian Combined Clarine and DARIA Association, Claria AT, sponsors, and that's really dear to my heart, like a small company, not that small, they can sponsor still already, of my former students, or in fact really PhD students still. They were, took the, how to frame it in English when I'm nervous, they felt like entrepreneurs, or learned how to feel like this, and founded a small DH support company, DH Craft. So dhcraft.org, that was the advertisement. That's sponsors, but in reality, the lion's share of the sponsoring comes from you. That you were willing to pay fees to come here to attend this conference. Many, many thanks. My second section includes the organization and individuals in the DH community who supported our work significantly. For example, connecting to the long series of DH conferences and via the last conference in Tokyo. And many thanks to Masahiro Shimoda, to Kiyonori Nagasaki, to Iki Homakai, to Taisa Yamada. Many thanks that you helped us and made it as easy to step in your large and big footsteps you printed with your last conference. ADHO in itself has definitely did a large share on the work and support. There's Glenn, Lane, Worthy, I have to thank, and Diane I would like to thank in particular, Because, you know, there's these organizations and there are people in these organizations, and some of these people feel responsible. And Diane, you are definitely one of those. And the other I would like to single out in this large group of organizational people managing ADHO, and it's a large thing to manage, is the, for me, a representative of the CCC, of the Conference Coordination Committee, Michael Eberle-Sinatra. Many thanks to you as well. We cooperated, and that's the last, you prepare for the clapping, the last organizational part. ADHO assigned to us 2 program committee chairs. We were slightly involved in selecting them. They were kind, ADHO, to ask us what. And ADHO did a good choice, a really good choice. A good choice in a way that this separation between local organizing and program committee somehow got blurred. And I feel really grateful to you, Anne and Thomas, that you did this for us. And that's a good reason to applaud. Okay. There's a section of people which are usually hidden. And these hidden people I like to single out again by names. There's people like Sonja Gruber, and you never will have heard her name, and you hopefully will hear her name later sometimes, because she was the person, our contact person at this venue here, at the Messekongress Graz, and she helped us really, really much. There's Toni Legenstein, who provided the catering, and you don't know yet why we are glad that he supported us. You will learn tonight, later on. There is Julia Spiegel from the UniKit, so the Kid Care. There might be only a few people here who really appreciate in their own. I appreciate that this worked so smoothly and so good, and even in last minute. And there's the person to thank for this idea, for the hardware. Gabor Palko from the ELTE in Budapest, the DH unit, provided us. Many thanks. Final section. I'm talking to you as the official local organizing committee chair. And I'm lucky and feel glad that I can talk to you because this means I can now do not have to thank myself because I did a really, really tiny share on the work. So I can now gratefully thank to those who really made this happen. That's the CIM team, my institute here, which I really like that you all supported us. And there are 2 names. Sina, sorry. Come up. Florian Lamminger, are you somewhere? You are the representatives of all those here, where we have, again, a bit of chocolate for you. That's actually There were others who feel already, I see them already getting nervous. Who is the next one he's picking? These people who worked in the background since weeks and months. People we somehow called on the website executives, executing orders, executing us. Oh, pushing us, moving us. Martina Scholger, Elisabeth Steiner, many, many thanks. Please, you are again asked to come up here. Don't hide. Yeah. Now, prepare for the only important applause. My notes are really poetic, I won't read them to you. But we have to applaud for the brain, the heart, the soul of this conference, Walter. And Elisabeth. By this, I can switch to the next slide, which is the very next slide. So we have a greeting from the current Minister of Education, Science and Research, who has a double advantage. He was former Rector, so he was involved in this conference before he became minister. You will see this, hear this, understand this if you listen to him.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants of the Digital Humanities Conference 2023. As a former rector of the University of Graz, it is a special honor for me to welcome you all here in Graz at the Center for Information Modeling, the Austrian Center for Digital Humanities. Digital humanities are an important topic at the University of Graz since the 1990s. At the beginning, there was a small computer lab operated by students, which became interdisciplinary service units supporting all the disciplines of the humanities. Later, this lab, now known as the Center for Information Modeling, developed Austria's first research and teaching facility of the digital humanities. Today, the University of Graz holds a very successful master's degree program on digital humanities, plays a key role in a variety of national and international research projects, and represents Austria in important national and international research infrastructures of the digital humanities. Worthy to mention here is the consortium of ADHO, where Graz plays a leading role and therefore is an internationally successful and valued location. As you may know, ADHO is the Austrian consortium of the international ESFRI research infrastructures, CLARI, Common Language Resources and Technology Infrastructure, and BARIA, Digital Research Infrastructure for the Arts and Humanities. Already as a Vice Rector for Studies and Teaching, I have been in regular exchange with the Center and supported the establishment of the first Austrian Digital Humanities Professorship and the first Austrian Digital Humanities Master's degree in 2017. When I was Rector of the University of Graz, I also supported the successful application to this conference. Now, as the Federal Minister for Education, Science and Research, I am very proud to open this important conference on the digital humanities. Digital transformation is a strategic topic of the European Union, especially in the area of cultural heritage, which you can see on initiatives like the Digital Europe Data Spaces, the European Open Science Cloud, and the European Collaborative Cloud on Cultural Heritage. The role of the humanities is of particular importance when it comes to innovative technologies, as you can see in contextualization, critical evaluation of sources, ethical considerations, interface between technology and society or culture, especially in connection with digitalization and machine learning, artificial intelligence. Graz has always been a location with good connections to Southeast Europe. Close cooperation with Southeastern European colleagues has always been a central concern and a successful project for the University of Graz. This conference continues this tradition of neighborly cooperation in an exemplary manner. Here in Graz, the conference brings together more than 700 colleagues with around 380 contributions from all over the world. and gives them the opportunity to promote international networking and innovative research in the field of the digital humanities. I hope you have fruitful discussions the next 3 days, and I honor your engagement for digital humanities.
The next welcome comes from the city. David Ram is not Ram? Please tell me. We all joked about random access memory. You know that. So,
probably yes.
Herr Ram, you have the floor.
So at least you're opening with something funny for me. Coming as a politician from the city of Graz. I will keep myself short. Obviously, I don't know much about the whole field that you're working in. But I did some research, I asked some questions, and it seems to be pretty important. No, really. We are very happy, very proud to have you all here. Graz is a university, it's a place where we have lots of universities, we have great research. Congratulations to the organizing committee, to the group at the university for being such an exemplary group, bringing this conference to Graz, and showing also our competence around the world. I'm here to bring you greetings from our mayor, LKK, our vice mayor, Judith Schwentner. They would love to be here. Unfortunately, they're at other places. They have to be at other places right now. Nevertheless, I wish you a great conference. I hope you also have time in your tight schedule to experience Graz. Graz is a very beautiful city with many sites. With a beautiful inner city with lots of places to go. And hope you have a wonderful time, a great conference, lots of great discussions, and hope to see you back here soon. Thank you.
So, I now ask my rector to talk. I love this, my rector, sorry, it's a bit an attitude to me, but Peter Rieler knows it already.
My professor. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored to have the opportunities to say a few words to you, although our former rector, Minister Polaszek, mentioned many of the things I wanted to say, so I'll make it a little bit shorter, good for you. Well, first of all, I'm very happy that 800 participants from 50 countries are here, from Jamaica to Kyrgyzstan, South Africa to Norway, China to Luxembourg, almost the whole world. You cover almost the whole world, which is a natural thing in digital sciences, but the great thing is it's an analog conference. I understood it's the first for many years in this context, so great that you are here. Digital humanities has a great impact at the University of Graz, and Minister Polaszek already mentioned that it's the center, the Austrian Center of Digital Humanities, is a driving force behind a considerable number of small and often also highly funded international renowned research projects at the university and the faculty. And what is important to mention, strategically I would say, it's my role as a rector, the University of Graz in its self-conception acts as a gateway institution to Southeast Europe, an aspiration that is well reflected in the concept of this conference. Thank you very much for that. And of course, there should be a strong impact on Southeast of Europe in the sense of bridge building for countries which are maybe not already there where they could be in digital humanities. Also, the new format of embassies was implemented, as I understood, to strengthen that commitment. Already mentioned was that the impact digital humanities has on our studies. It's a very strong program that is offered, the second most popular master's degree program in the Faculty of Humanities. Social responsibility is maintained in digital humanities through close cooperation with regional and national cultural heritage institutions, already in a way mentioned. And Professor Vogeler also mentioned digital humanities craft, a successful spin-off. It's placed in our unicorn. It's not a unicorn in the sense of a startup yet. Maybe it will be, but the unicorn is our startup center at the university campus, in the corner of the university campus. So that's why we call it unicorn. What is important to mention that digital humanities play a key role, as I mentioned, and the commitment of the university is to accompany digital transformation from the perspective of a comprehensive university and to emphasize and study the connection between computer science and other disciplines. This is, can be seen in the interdisciplinary network Human Factor and Digital Transformation, but also in a newly established idea lab, as we call it. It's an interdisciplinary lab, and I'm happy that Minister Poschek did not mention that, so I have something to tell you. It consolidates, accompanies and stimulates interdisciplinary research in the field of digital transformation and creates a creative space for networking, especially with stakeholders outside the university, like tech companies and other data-driven institutions. A number of professorships are being or will be installed for ethics of KI, the field of data science, machine learning methods, and data analysis will follow. So we think and hope that we get an even stronger commitment on digital issues and digital humanities, also through the Idea Lab. You can see that the commitment of the university also through this conference, of course. And maybe I just add a few words about the university itself, which was not mentioned yet. Many of you might know the University of Graz. We are quite a big university, the second largest in Austria, with 6 faculties, 30,000 students, 4,800 employees, founded in 1585. And maybe to add something to the words of Mr. Ram, we just heard, Graz, of course, is a university town. There's not only the University of Graz, but also the University of Technology and the Medical University, which used to be a faculty of our university in earlier days, as well as 2 universities of applied sciences, so about 50,000 students, and unfortunately many of them are not in Graz at the moment. Of course, we have studies have finished last week, but I think, and I'm sure that you can feel the spirit of a university town when you walk through Graz. I wish you a successful conference. Thank you very much to the organizers. Congratulations to Professor Vogeler and his team. And not only a successful conference, I also wish you enjoyable days in Graz. Thank you very much.
ADHO is the most technical, if proficient institution, so we switch the machine. That's USB-C, I think. And Susan Brown will welcome you and give you some information on ADHO and the conference. That looks good. Yeah. Seems to work.
see it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Jörg and Walter, and everyone who has contributed to this amazing event. I'm the president of the Constituents Organization Board of ADHO, ADHO being an organization of organizations promoting DH around the globe. And I am absolutely delighted to be here at our first conference in person in 4 years. It's been a long time, and we're really glad to be here together and very thankful to everyone who has made that happen. Not only the named members of the local organizing team, but the amazing volunteers who we've already seen them in action during our pre-conference workshops, doing a fantastic job of supporting the presence of all of us here so that we can engage with the things that we care about most. I just want to reflect for a moment on the pandemic and the impact that it had on our organization. We kept going in all sorts of ways that were really impressive, thanks to the work of many, many people. And many of them have not been together or had a chance to be thanked by us in person. So I'm going to take a few minutes to go into this. First of all, we had pivoting of the conference we had hoped to hold in 2020 to an online conference, thanks to the work of the initial organizers, Constance Cronton and Laura Estel, and Jen Giuliano, and others, and Diane Jakaki, who helped it move online. So that was a huge thing. We had amazing pivoting by the organizers of DH2021, as it was supposed to be, to 2022, and then Jörg and Walter and the team here, along with Anne and Thomas, as PC chairs, very graciously agreed to postpone the conference they had already been planning for many years, yet another year, so that we could have an amazing online experience with DH2022 hosted by JADH last year. In addition, many, many people worked behind the scenes as we accomplished a lot during the pandemic. We didn't just keep going. We completed our governance process, which was really an equity and inclusion initiative meant to support the fact that DH was growing globally, and the initial structures of ADHO did not support the growth that we were experiencing. And that means that we developed a new governance model that was representative of all the organizations that would be joining. It was equitable, one organization, one vote, and a financial model that would take us forward into the future. And many, many people were involved in that process and have not been thanked by us all. So this is just a list of the people who have retired or are retiring at the end of this conference. Not everybody who did this work, only the officers, so not even all the committee members, the communication fellows, and so on. It takes many hands to keep ADHO going. That work is often modestly performed, invisible, and so I would like to ask all those who are named in this slide who have not had a chance to be thanked by us in person before to please stand so we can give a round of applause to you for your amazing dedication to us as volunteers. So please stand, everyone who's named on this slide. Thank you. Thank you so much. There's lots more to share, but we need to move on. So please come out on Wednesday to the community forum we're holding to find out more about what ADHO has been doing and how you can get involved. I will just note that we've been working hard this year to think about how the conference can be made better. There is a survey circulating that's asking for your feedback. We're going to have another survey coming up on what ADHO is now that we have transformed. We are transforming in so many ways. We have a website that will soon be in French and Spanish. I have also heard rumors of German by the end of the year, French and Spanish at least, showing our commitment to multilingualism and multiculturalism. We have an intersectional inclusion task force that's working with the rest of the organization to think about how we can transform effectively. So please sign up for our newsletter, listen to our podcasts, and find out what we've been doing. The biggest thing I have to announce is that we are growing by 2. We are no longer 11 organizations, we are 13. I am so delighted to announce that the Digital Humanities Alliance for Research and Teaching Innovations, DARTI, and the Korean Association for Digital Humanities have today been voted for admission to ADHO. So please, could I ask... I was just going to ask Jae-Young and Nirmala to stand along with anybody else from these associations who's here with us for the conference, and we welcome you and your colleagues and look forward to much. We look forward to a continuing and increasing exchange with all of you, so welcome. One of the most fun things about the conference is the Fortier Prize for young scholars, new scholars who are presenting. This is the list of our finalists, so please look for them in the program and come out to hear their papers. We have many amazing members of our community presenting for the first time or at early stages in their career, and this is your chance to hear some absolutely fabulous scholarship. Finally, I'd like to remind you that we have a conference code of conduct. You can find it on both the conference website and the ADHO website. We want to make sure that we are creating a space for respectful engagement and interaction. So please be aware of it and recognize that you've agreed to this in the process leading up to the conference, and we're all working together to make a positive and safe space for everyone. And we have amongst us 5 persons of confidence who are listed in this slide. I'd like to ask them to stand now, please, so they can be recognized. They can also be recognized by the fact that they have yellow floppy disks, not black floppy disks, for their conference tags. So contact details are also available on the conference website, and we'll thank them very much for their willingness to serve in this very important capacity. So thanks. So that's all I have to say. Thank you and welcome, and thank you to everybody who's contributing to this conference by presenting. You are the people who make it happen and give us the reason to come together. So thanks. Should I?
Now the conference finally becomes scholarly. Anne, Thomas will lead you through the plans through this program, and then lead to the conference. Sarah, fortunately, is so nice to lock her in. She's good. This mighty hand. Anne, Thomas, you have the floor.
Dear Minister Polacek, dear Council Member Raum, dear Rector Riedler, dear ADHO representatives, dear local organizers, dear DH2023 participants. It is a great pleasure for us to contribute to this opening ceremony and to get to see you all at once from here. I will be giving this opening speech, and Thomas will then take on with the chairing of the keynote. So we have been, one way or another, in contact with most of you over the past year and a half. We know you as authors and as reviewers. And before proceeding any further in this ceremony, we will have to thank you all, because it is you who shaped the conference as it presents itself. It is you who sent in abstracts, who reviewed other abstracts, who responded to reviews, who looked at the responses and modified grading, you who reached in an updated version of the abstract, what is more, in the DH convalidator format, You again who reacted enthusiastically when asked to chair a session, and you who will deliver and discuss presentations in the coming days. Our greatest thanks goes to you. So here's a map of where everybody comes from. Our thanks goes to you, the DH community, for showing engagement, reliability, and passion. Needless to say, after the years of interruption due to the pandemic, it is simply wonderful that the DH scholarly discussion can proceed in this magnificent venue under the auspices of the Alliance of Digital Humanities organization. When ADHO chose us as PC co-chairs 2 years ago, we knew that business as usual was not an option. We knew that this conference, set 4 years now after the last on-site DH conference in Utrecht, was an opportunity to try out a few new things, to see what works and what doesn't, but somehow to try to adapt to the reality of what the world is today. We didn't realize all the crazy plans we forged, but some. It's mattered to both of us that the peer review process would be with open identities. Experience has shown that this does not solve all challenges and that open peer review does not suffice to avoid all biases, but experience has also shown that being able to engage in a critical discussion from individual to individual is part of community building. It mattered to us that a hybrid setting would be offered for those with care work who wouldn't be able to travel in, for those from faraway countries who wouldn't be able to afford the trip, or for that matter, for all those mindful of their environmental footprint. The local organizers made it possible while keeping registration costs very reasonable. So a big hello and welcome to all the about 100 online participants who are not in the room with us today, but who are still with us in our hearts and minds. Actually, there are many more things that the local organizers have made possible, and I don't just mean choosing a venue that is within 5 minutes from an excellent ice cream place. The list of all what they made possible would be too long. We would still be here in an hour talking about it if I had to actually list it all. So the Graz team has facilitated everything for the program committee to be able to concentrate on all the fun, sciencey parts while they were taking care of logistics in an amazing manner. We are immensely grateful to the whole team, especially to Walter Schoger and Elisabeth Traunig, who answered our request within minutes and have been doing so for months. So thank you very much. We knew from the onset that it would be great to work with you, but we keep being overwhelmed by your support day after day. You're really amazing. Now, what we, the program committee, some PC members are here today, and we would like to thank them for their support as well. What we did was to put together the program that you all, as I said, contributed to set up, and that the local organizers backed up with logistics and the conference management. We received as many as 775 submissions to our call for papers, 647 reviewers, that's more people than fit in this room, have accepted to deliver what eventually came up to 2,573 reviews. In the past 2 days, the 28 workshops, both those that were accepted after the peer review process and the SIG workshops, were delivered at the University of Graz. And those who were there will tell you that all workshops were full and the work atmosphere a delight despite the hot temperatures. From tomorrow on, some more session navigation is needed. There will be no less than 116 short papers, 107 long papers, and 16 panels to choose from. The 105 posters will be officially presented during the poster session tomorrow afternoon, but they have a dedicated room and can stay displayed all week. So feel free to organize poster meetups in the various breaks over the week. Now, when I say that the program committee put the program together, that is not entirely true. The selection we operate would actually be meaningless if it were not for the hard work of the reviewers. Reviews are the backbone of the quality assurance process of the Digital Humanities Conference. This process is not perfect, but it is being improved, and we hope to have contributed to this ongoing improvement as much as it was possible, considering the technical constraints. Reviews are a space for scholarly communication. They are also a space where intercultural differences become so blatant that it can sometimes be perceived as hurtful. We propose an addition to the existing ad hoc code of conduct dedicated to constructive reviewing, and we introduced a Best Review Award. Both elements have been implemented in the German-speaking DH conference over the past years with great success. Like many other aspects of the reviewing process, the Best Review Award bears the risk of becoming yet another acknowledgement of rigid structures of power. In order for it to be an instrument of diversity, of equity, of intercultural dialogue, we would like to encourage all future authors to consider nominating reviewers from various backgrounds and to credit all forms of original input and novelty of perspective when suggesting a nomination for the Best Review Award. The awardees of the Best Review Award of this year will be unveiled on Friday during the closing ceremony, so don't miss it. Preparing this conference has been an amazing journey, and we look forward to getting to know your projects and collaborations other than on the paper, you other than in email form, and discussion other than in just tweet exchanges. We thank our Graz hosts again, and we will actually never be able to thank them enough, and look forward to the 3 full days of digital humanities, starting with tonight's keynote.
Okay, I know that I'm the, the only thing standing between you and the keynote, so bear with me just for a second. Georg has... Wait, Georg, you asked me to invite people. Why are you jumping in? Seriously. Georg has asked me to tell you that there are seats in the front row, so stop pretending that you are, bad students in school and come up here. You can sit here more comfortably. All right, so the crisis of the humanities. The crisis of the humanities has always already been upon us, and it would be very hard to find a time period in history when absolutely nobody was writing about the catastrophic deterioration of human values, about cultural decay, and about societies in decline. And I totally get that. I think all of you do, because most of the news that we read every single day is terribly depressing. The world is on fire. And yet, here we are, not giving up on humanistic disciplines, continuing to explore the questions of meaning, expression, and identity, analyzing text, images, sounds, exploring the past, trying to understand the present, and, if we're really lucky, imagine different kinds of future. So why do we do it? And to be honest, I think we do it because we can't really help it. We, as humanists, are addicted to the process of sense-making. We thrive on the big picture. We love to poke around things that are not obvious, to look into what lies under the surface, and to read between the lines. This is what we do. We are, in one way or another, meaning junkies. So, for this year's conference, we have asked our very patient keynote speaker and all of you to think about the revolutionary potential of digital humanities, to think against and beyond the hype about about how digital methods can help us navigate the continuities and ruptures in our quest for meaning in a rapidly changing world. And to do all that, while knowing that we are ourselves exposed to the economic and ideological tensions that characterize information capitalism. So it's a fairly simple, straightforward kind of humanistic topic, isn't it? It isn't, I know. But I'm truly delighted to present to you tonight the first keynote speaker of DH2023. Sarah Kenderdine works with software engineers, artists,
and curators at the forefront of interactive and immersive experiences for galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. In numerous installations around the world, she has interwoven tangible and intangible cultural heritage with new media art practices and a focus on, among many other things, interactive cinema, augmented reality, and embodied narratives. In 2017, Sarah was appointed professor at the EPFL in Lausanne, where she has built the Laboratory for Experimental Museology, exploring the convergence of imaging technologies, immersive visualization, digital aesthetics, and cultural and scientific big data. Now, I met Sarah for the first time when she joined the DARIA scientific board a few years ago, and I was blown away by her creativity, by her inventiveness, by her intellectual rigor, by the passion which she has for the work she does, and by the generosity of her spirit. And I'm very happy that Sarah can be with us tonight to share her thoughts on Twofold revolutions, computational museology in the age of experience. Sarah, we are ready for you to delight us, so the stage is yours.
The whirling dervishes of the Mevlevi order, spinning their bodies in repetitive circles, revolving from right to left, are seen as a symbolic imitation of the planets in the solar system orbiting the sun, captured here by a spherical video camera around which the Sama revolves. This sequence encodes physical, spiritual, and technological revolutions. Our fabulous conference organizers, Anne and Thomas, have asked me to speak to you on the theme of revolutions. It's a tall order after a day of workshops and before an evening of entertainment. We could discuss the manifest and hallucinatory revolutions in museums or digital humanities, perhaps, but anybody who knows me also knows my preoccupation with revolutions of a different kind. Those as defined in mathematics as to be a full rotation, a complete 360-degree turn, the revolution of a Ferris wheel, a spinning ballerina, or even the ambulatory circuit inside a 19th century panorama. My research, as will become evident, is a conjunction of revolving machinery and the omnidirectional space of representation that these apparatus enable us to engage with, the museological performance of culture where everything is always outside of the frame. Thus, I address twofold revolutions, touching upon 6 salient transformations in museology with an eye to the past, where each installation example is expressed in the round, as it were. And to keep things fresh, I've also included several projects in progress, so I hope you will be able to fill in the gaps before they reach the museum floor. And so let's begin, starting nowhere near the beginning, of course, but somewhere on the great circle of museum transformations. In 1988, the then Amsterdam-based artists Cheba Van Tiegen and Geoffrey Shaw submitted to an official French competition for the commemoration of the bicentennial of the French Revolution. The concept was a celebration of 200 revolutionary moments across the world from 1789 to 1989. A scale model of the imaginary Museum of Revolutions was presented in La Villette in Paris. The installation consisted of a field of revolutionary statuary. Irrespective of the monument's original size, replicas were intended to be scaled to slightly larger than human scale. A visitor, upon touching a statue, would invoke a revolutionary song to be played. Inside the field of monumental sculptures, interactive multimedia stations were set in an enclosure. By showing different kinds of revolutions worldwide from different areas included in their various interpretations, Van Tiegen and Shaw intended to express the multifaceted aspects of the concept revolution. Beyond the spatial temporal dimensions, mapping revolutions can happen in diverse ways. Subgenres include insurrection, riot, rebellion, and revolt, or counter-revolution. And the same form can acquire different meanings in different contexts. Army mutinies, banditry, or guerrilla warfare, civil rights movements, boycotts, or civil disobedience. This, of course, was a lovely digital humanities project. The database of 200 revolutions is organized and can be freely navigated according to 3 principles of space, time, and ideology. And when navigating ideology, the participant interacted with sub-classifications of actors, actions, and motives. To gain access to the central zone, the visitor must have passed through one of 3 entrances, and at each entrance were flanked by 2 vending machines called Wurlitzers. These vending machines contained miniature replicas of monuments for purchase, noting here that the pre-EU French coin had the words liberty, fraternity, and equality engraved upon it. The miniatures were used to activate the central multimedia system, allowing participants to explore the various thematics. This gave genesis to a new project by Geoffrey Shaw in 1989, simply titled Revolution. The coup in Romania in 1989 brought the world into an era of televised revolutions. The physical arrangement is a CRT monitor mounted on a stand in the center of a large wooden platform, and this wheel of changes becomes a televised simulacrum. Protruding from the stand is a steel bar which the viewers grasp so as to rotate the monitor in either direction. A friction plate necessitates the viewer making a big physical effort to do this. If rotated clockwise, the screen shows a rapid succession of 200 digital collages by Van Tiegen. They were displayed every 1.8 degrees, so 200 in a single revolution of the monitor. At walking speed, they were almost a blur. If rotated anti-clockwise, the image on the screen became that of an ancient millstone that, while being turned by the viewer, is grinding wheat grains into flour, both sustenance and indentured labor. The viewer's body, straining with effort, is the essential component of a formal, conceptual, and functional configuration of this work. There are 2 expenditures of energy conjoined, the actual and the metaphoric. The installation provides the viewer a kinesthetic engagement with the topic of revolution by his becoming, or her becoming, the physical agent and agitator of its narratives and going around in a revolutionary cycle of turning oneself. This marked one of the great revolutions of the modern museum, that of participation of the visitor in the generation of an emergent narrative. Back to the French Revolution, we know that it was also the catalyst for the first public museum in Europe with the establishment of the Louvre in Paris in 1793. Museum theorist Tony Bennett connects the work of the earliest museums to those of the ambitions of world fairs in the 19th century, such as the 1851 Great Exhibition in Britain, which is depicted in this slide. These shows work to render the whole world as represented in assemblages of commodities, subordinate to the controlling vision of the spectator. And as Bennett argues, the development of bourgeois democratic polities required not merely that the populace be governable, but that it acquiesced to its own governance. Museums evolved in modern nation states as institutions whose hold over their publics depended upon their voluntary participation through specular dominance. This was quite a revolution indeed. The architecture and installation of world fairs, even today, is an ongoing search for spectacular effects of its own visual landscape, along with the search for spectacular affects on its visitors. Stereoscopy, which emerged in the mid-19th century with its seemingly miraculous ability to produce illusion, was tangible proof of the industrial achievements of the time and central to the presentation of these early universal exhibitions. Always attuned to spectacle, Napoleon III, the French emperor, instigated the Universal Exhibition 1867 in Paris. It was designed with an innovative iron palace and included over 100 national pavilions in a vast park on the Champ de Mars. The fair marked a turning point in visual culture. Far from being a traditional display of manufactured goods and natural resources, it mobilized contemporary technologies in the service of history and museography in order to create an immersive visitor experience that was a sensation at the time. The gigantic elliptical palace was arranged as a panoptical machine which seemed designed to illustrate Karl Marx's analysis of commodity fetishism described in Das Kapital, published in the same year. The fair brought together about 50,000 exhibitors from 32 countries and attracted an estimated 11 million visitors over 8 months. Conjoining fundamental historical research and the investigation of this great globalizing event, we're embarking on a new project to articulate the historic technologies of vision mobilized at the fair. Approximately 1,000 stereo plates from multiple collections worldwide are being curated into a new visualization paradigm for the 360 3D panorama system in my laboratory. It's 10 meters diameter and 4.5 meters high and accommodates about 30 people at any one time. American writer Olivia Wendell Holmes coined the term stereograph in 1859 and wrote most evocatively of the stereo effects of the visual effects of stereovision systems. He described the tactility of stereopsis. By means of these two different views of an object, the mind, as it were, feels around it and gets an idea of its solidity. We grasp an object with our eyes, and then we know it to be something more than just a surface. In our reconstitution of the archive, computer vision techniques are used to correct the stereographic pairs, rectification for projection, removing artifacts, denoising, defect correction, and upscaling for high fidelity. Recoloring, a sensitive issue always in the archive, is also undertaken in select cases. And advances in computer vision also hint at the possibilities for fully reconstructed scenes with navigable 3D geometry. This image depicts a wireframe of the exhibition architecture, and through historical research, each of the images has been geolocated to its correct position in the fair. Stereo Spectacular is part of exhibitions for museums in Paris and Washington starting in 2026. The Unreal runtime application, which I'll show you in the next slide, is only at its early stages, not quite complete, so don't be too concerned with any duplications or aberrations you might see. As noted by Jonathan Crary, stereography played down its operative mechanism within the shell of the display device, thus enhancing its phantasmagorical nature. Likewise, for Benjamin and others, the phantasmic attribute was assumed central to the visual culture of the mid-19th century through stereo effects. When the stereograph became embedded in the interior of architectures of public space, in particular museums and traveling exhibits, the medium molded the Western world's view. It made the global world more accessible physically and virtually. Tourism was shaped by a cultural imaginary of armchair travel. And as the media theorist Oliver Grau writes, in virtual reality, The panoramic view is conjoined by the motor sensory exploration of an image space that gives the impression of a living environment. This dramaturgical strategy is imbued with specular dominance, in which the assemblages of commodities, and in this case the assemblages of the stereo record, become subordinate to the controlling vision and action of the participants. Meanwhile, omnidirectional attention diverts the ego-centered view, as there's always something going on inside the same space, but outside the user's direct field of view. A cognitive map of an omnidirectional immersive space allows for allo and egocentric interpretations simultaneously. As a global event, the 1867 exposition put in motion an unprecedented play of mirrors. Delegations came from all over the world, and to augment this archival display, the stereo images will be sonified with global voices through commentaries written by these visitors at the time. The exhibition we're curating with photographic and art historians from MIT and the University of Paris-Cité juxtaposes real objects and this virtual real-time panorama. It's designed to critique issues of colonial dominance and exploitation through witness and diverse cultural interpretations. Moving on from the 19th century, by the 1930s, the challenges posed by emerging technologies at the time precipitated a call for a radical rethinking of the relationships between exhibition spaces, exhibits, and the spectator. The idea of temples dedicated to the cult of authentic or erratic objects seemed outdated to many. The media reality itself was thought to be transforming the museum into something available to anybody. Theorists and critics often felt they were standing on the museum's ruins, influenced by André Malraux's famous idea of the imaginary museum without walls, presented in 1947. And in an aligned scientific revolution, Vannevar Bush, the American engineer and scientist, conceived the MEMEX, a new nonlinear system for storing and retrieving data. As the media archaeologist Erkki Huhtamo describes, the ideas of Malraux and Bush combined to take us to the gateway of the virtual museum. With its many definitions and manifestations over the years, I will take just two definitive and foundational historical examples. The museum inside the telephone network 1991 was arguably the first exhibition not based on any physical space. The show was accessible to home users through network communication devices such as the telephone, the fax, and computer networking. The show was organized by ICC for the Japanese telco NTT. It was designed to investigate the possible ways communication networks could impact the museum institution. Now, the list of contributors to this first exhibition is quite noteworthy. Laurie Anderson, J.G. Ballard, Pierre Boulez, Ryoichi Sakamoto, John Giorno, William Forsyth, William S. Burroughs, Merck Cunningham, John Cage, Jacques Derrida, Allen Ginsberg, Philip Glass, Felix Guattari, Derek Jarman, Jeff Koons, Steve Reich, Paul Virilio, John Zorn, and more. This was obviously a revolution to be part of. Museums, of course, have gone on to colonize the internet, but this is not a history I'm going to pursue because for me, the real revolution still remains on the museum floor, the last bastion of curatorial authority where participatory and emergent narratives are at their most challenging. In 1989, there's nothing new under the sun, Geoffrey Shaw, developed what was documented to be the first virtual museum. A three-dimensional computer-generated museum comprising an immaterial constellation of rooms and exhibits. A circular motorized platform rotating holds a large video projection monitor, a computer, and a chair from which the viewer interactively controls her journey through the virtual museum. It was pioneering for its AR, where the viewer circumambulates in both the real and virtual world, for mixed reality, for the conjunction of a real museum with virtual replicas and virtual exhibits, and for human-computer interaction, a rotating chair tilting back and forth as a VR navigation interface. And in amazing synchronicity, the virtual museum was actually shown in Graz in 2004 as part of an exhibition called Mobile Parts Forms of the Kinetic at the Kunsthaus. Many innovators and early forms of immersive experiences from the 60s onwards also believed that the spatialized multisensory embodiment would enhance the capacity and speed of the human mind in cognition. Early developments in dome projection theaters, for example, emerged from attempts to stimulate the spherical gestalt of the human visual field and were designed to exploit and extend sensory perception. It is the physiological, sensorial, perceptual, and cognitive qualities of immersion that have driven many pioneering media artists and also museums in the direction of virtual reality today. Now, as we know, many technological elites often lay claim to various revolutions. It was the CEO of Intel, Brian Krasnick, who declared in 2014, "We're in the midst of a transformation from a world of screens and devices to a world of immersive experiences." But we know what he was really observing was hundreds of years of development in these technologically enabled prosthetic architectures of the senses. From the Kaiser panorama to the sensorama, the emergence of immersive environments coincided with the sublimation of curatorial praxis inside machines and represented the greatest challenge to the passive viewer since the invention of the roller coaster. Many, many volumes have been written on immersion and also the classic 19th century panoramic form, including over 20 years of my own commentary on this subject, which I won't repeat here. However, my attention to this form has been brought starkly back into focus recently with the arrival of a new object in our laboratory. This is a painted panorama that represents the Swiss Battle of Confederation of 1476, painted by the German artist Louis Braun in 1893. It's significant as a celebration of a major battle in European history and as part of Swiss identity in the creation of a nation state. It took the German military artist and his atelier 40 assistants 8 months to complete. A specialist of the panoramic form, none of Braun's many panoramic pictures are currently accessible, and most of them have been completely destroyed or are missing. Upon completion of the Merton panorama, it was displayed in a rotunda in Zurich and then in Geneva for only a total of 7 years, and then it was abandoned with the demise of this media form. It was rediscovered in the 1990s, and a conservation effort began in 1997, which took 6 full years. The Merton panorama is one of 4 historic panoramas in Switzerland and one of only 15 worldwide, depending on how you count it. Together with the International Panorama Council, we're putting together a bid for the UNESCO Memory of the World application to list these 15 for their significance as a media format. Such a claim follows Stephen Otterman's analysis of the form as the first true mass medium. After conservation, it was finally re-erected inside a 360-degree structure and floated on the Lake of Merton in a box created by Jean Nouvel, the French architect, for the Swiss National Expo in 2002. It was then returned to obscurity. So we recently rescued it from a military storage facility in the Alps where it's been languishing for 20 years. The full length of the image is 100 meters. Each of the 3 sections are 10 meters high and they weigh 1 ton each. Remarkably, we managed to fit it inside the lab. So we're working together with a team of conservators. We've done a full conservation assessment over the last 3 months. We built motorized platforms and spare rolls to roll one roll to another role. We did lots of vacuum cleaning, and we're ready for the next phase. So we're about to image this object, 150 megapixel camera, generously sponsored by Phase 1. We'll stitch together 127,000 images to create an image that's 1.6 trillion pixels at 1,000 dpi. Now this turns out to be the largest image ever created. This is a kind of revolution, but it's not rocket science. We will produce a full XY axis query system, full image tiling and zooming, and multiple resolution output request systems from this data. In addition, computer vision and machine learning will be used to detect and address major damage in the painting. We'll then apply automated digital in-painting and modest digital restoration where required. The project is, of course, devised for 360 3D. The superfine resolution will allow participants to zoom into more than the naked eye can see, and a range of 3D augmentations of the scene will be created for major exhibitions starting in 2026 with the 550th commemoration of the battle. We have a pressure-sensitive carpet. We also have a smell necklace which releases blood, sweat, goatee smells, and horse smells. And, of course, a 6th degree of freedom interface. We're working with European historical martial arts for reenactment fighting and modeling costumes with fashion designers, all based on deep military history. We capture these sequences also in volumetric video. We're able to map the location of the battle onto a series of viewpoints of Merton today. The panorama merged these perspectives together and will conjoin both contemporary and historic views of the landscape. And just to give you an idea of what this looks like, I'm diverting to a different project in the round, of course, so that you can understand what we're doing here. But this is the 1853 etching of Constantinople by Henry Barker, completed for Robert Barker's original panorama building in Leicester Square. Very important object. We scanned it at 1,000 dpi. We know exactly where it was drawn from, the Galata Tower in Taksim. And here the image is printed on a 360-degree screen, and a mobile augmented reality tablet will be used to overlay the contemporary gigapixel shot from the same location that the etching was created from. And this layered image can in turn be used to be augmented again with urban planning data, heritage, architecture information, literary, psychogeography. And just to finish with Merton again, we've developed a multi-user system which allows up to 20 members of the public to augment the scene using a text-to-image generator, building their own augmented panorama together, which looks like this. There's no accounting for the public imaginary. Nice. The Merton project brings us to the heart of the digital twin revolution, where once it was argued that digital objects are discrete virtual representations of real-world entities and that their ontological status only exists as a context. According to new theories of the digital object, which I'm sure you're familiar, objects have a complexity that stem from a dualistic nature and their dynamic interactions with other objects and humans. In 2021, I curated and produced Deepfake's Art in its Double to pose crucial questions about the potency of digital replicas to absorb audiences in enduring emotional encounters with universal art treasures. In combination with real objects, the exhibition took the provocative title Deepfakes, yet it opposed the popular usage of deepfakes for manipulation and misinformation to explore very different perspectives, reimagining objects through advanced computational techniques. What follows is a series of photos of the exhibition while I explore its curatorial themes. And just a warning, these photos are asynchronous with what I'm describing. Therefore, if you're interested in any particular work, I'm happy to provide a detailed guidebook with attendant credits. Decades of computer science and engineering have revolutionized the tenets of verisimilitude and representation. Today's perfect pixels coalesce in imaging techniques designed to replicate cultural objects with ultimate fidelity. Simultaneously as algorithms and computer vision reperform and reprocess the digitally visible, they're exposing the optical unconscious of art, calling us to re-examine, once again, objecthood itself. Remediated through participatory interfaces such as mixed, augmented, and virtual realities, deepfakes art in its double created new performative platforms for the complex archetypes that emerge out of computational practices as they intersect with art heritage. Through 21 installations, the exhibition is equally focused on affirming and activating visitors' sensory experience, while also grappling with the critical implications of digital materialities that objects possess in post-original form. Cultural deepfakes, as I came to call them, have manifold significance. They're technologically empowered to offer forensic insights into invisible dimensions, generating unforeseen hypotheses and connections. These art science phenomena also propagate powerful auras which rise to the surface entangled with the effective qualities of the originating sources. Such augmented replicas are able to draw us into unparalleled tactility with the textures, patinas, and geometries of their counterparts. With its propensity for peripheral vision, machine learning has amplified the possible futures for curatorial and artistic practices, antagonizing outdated notions of authority, authenticity, and access. These practices are generating perpetually new archival entities, concurrently formed and formless. Digital facsimiles also decolonize matter as they defy hegemonic narratives, helping to liberate things from their colonial entrapments, confronting authoritative discourses, historical sedimentation, and contested social relations. In cases of heritage at risk due to warfare, iconoclasm, and climate catastrophe, digital copies have enabled communities to become more resilient to loss. They can provide reservoirs of cultural memory and instruments for those on the margins to speak back to their oppressors. Vital issues for cultural deepfakes include how the encryption of digital counterparts in place of originals is exploding systems and codes of ownership, custodianship, and repatriation. Meanwhile, the accumulation and exploitation of digital patrimonial and cultural capital by technological elites unnervingly reenacts colonial constructs. Synchronously, new forms of cryptographic control, such as non-fungible tokens, are being enabled for the network circulation of arts. Promoting the blockchain as a potential dominion of arbitrary value is the hallmark of the intensification of late capitalism's newest investment for its enmeshed cultural objects, rather than their deappropriation in the commons. Deepfakes art in its double is a cumulative narrative that embarks on these cross-cutting themes, traversing the simulacrum, mirror worlds, digital twins, cryptocurrency, and machine intelligence, while engaging the issues of mimesis, reenactment, memory, and decolonization. The exhibition's installations cycle us through some of the antitheses around which the history of art has been circumscribed. As postmodernism recedes, taking with it the assumed meaning of things, cultural deepfakes have become a central pivot for this dialectic. Recognizing the importance of deepfakes opens the way to redefine the dominant technocultural logic of our contemporary era. From the exhibition Deepfakes, Double Truth is an interface that insists on a manual rotation for its activation. It's comprised of digital twins of revered Buddhist sculptures drawn from the Atlas of Maritime Buddhism Research Project and Worldwide Exhibition Series, a project of deep mapping across hundreds of sites with hundreds of objects too dense to go in today, but filled with panoramic and hemispheric content and interfaces. So many of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas from this exhibition have never been seen outside their country of origin before, and the exceptional fidelity of this sublime art treasury was created through photogrammetry as part of a 5-year fieldwork project. Visitors or participants rotate this human-scale viewing platform and in circumambulation from left to right, generate dynamic temporal sequences that reveal each of the 15 sacred sculptures one by one. The reverse rotation of the platform, meanwhile, reveals unexpected materialities. Icons melt, fragment, and refold in a series of computer graphic transformations and parametric visualization. The geometries of the digital transcend the originating visible and material properties. Returning the platform to its clockwise rotation restores or renews and is a performance of instauration. The acoustic realm of each sculpture is augmented with rare ethnographic archival recordings from all the Southeast Asian countries. Two truths in Mahayana Buddhism are the truths of the mundane and the absolute. As we know from art history, sculpture is also a double truth. It is both noun and verb, and it is at once frontality and multiplicity revealed in the round. Digital copies, as I mentioned in the Deep Flakes blurb, can support museums to be less bound to original artifacts, and they can be used to start as talking points for different communities in issues of repatriation and decolonization. Blockchain and smart contracts also provide a potential revolution for safeguarding this heritage, as well as for cultural diplomacy, IP issues, and applied justice. And we have a new grant with Indian colleagues at IIT. It's a touring exhibition in India based on this object navigator and a blockchain work addressing reception and custodianship of a series of 5th century Gupta period Buddhist sculpture, which we will start to create early next year. Co-creative and participatory museology is at the heart of the future of museums and represents revolutions of community engagement through augmentation and as a direct challenge to the authorial voice of the museum. In collaboration with the Anugu Elders and the National Museum of Australia, we created 2 dome experiences, Travelling Kankarangalpa, the songline of the 7 Sisters. This songline portrays one of the most defining and predominant meta-narratives chronicled in ancient mainland Australia, but never told in the public domain until this exhibition. A traumatic history of colonial contact made its custodians wary of disclosing details of their sacred knowledge, but the songline was in jeopardy. This project was 7 years in the making from the day that the community asked for help to bring this songline into the public domain. The digital dome was chosen by the Matu artists and used for this project to simultaneously express the sphere of the world around us, the sky above and the ground below, enveloping viewers as they lie supine, and these creation beings travel the landscape, leaving land formations in their wake, Cave Hill and the constellations of Pleiades and Orion in the southern night sky. The first work involved photogrammetry of a sacred cave that has never been photographed before. Time-lapse photography, drone-based panoramas, gigapixel imaging, ambisonics, allowing visitors intimate views of the stories contained within its sandstone folds. Archaic dome theatres are typified by rock art caves found throughout Australia. And throughout the ages, such arched enclosures have often been used as surfaces upon which to represent psycho-cosmological constructs decorated with renderings of incorporeal archetypes. The second dome journey immerses visitors in a series of projected artworks of the songline made by the custodians of the story, the Matu artists. These trussed grass jumpy figures representing the Seven Sisters are seen here in a ceremony being sung off the land by their curators before they leave for their new home at the National Museum. It's a bit like a morgue, actually. We created photogrammetric models here, and the images for the full dome were painted by the Matu artists. A complex set of narratives led to the animation interpretation, and the final work was created, or two works were created. This is a shot from the opening ceremony of this show, and what was most important about it is that it was a watershed in curatorial and Indigenous relationships in Australia. It was also a profound collaboration with the university sector, where I was able to write a grant to enable the dome and ultimately the work. And I believe that's the value of labs like mine, is to help support innovation inside the GLAM sector. The exhibition has won numerous awards and is currently touring worldwide. It was in Europe at the Humboldt Forum and is currently at the Quai Branly in Paris, should you be in town. And finally, 6, the computational revolution. Information, visualization, and cultural analytics have arguably altered how we view data and databases. However, the tools for searching remain rooted in archival conventions of grammatocentrism, where expert knowledge is the key of entry. Access and engagement with the majority of these databases relies on and continues to rely on query response and text-driven single searches. The computational revolution offers a paradigm shift for museums, where archives that they hold a new terrain upon which curators will reckon with the heritage materiality and calculate and define new fine-grained archival ontologies and narratives. Audiovisual archives in particular face several impasses with multiple implications for culture, public history, and society. The pressure for these repositories to be open have increased, but film scholars have pointed out the dichotomies of preservation versus reuse of film archives. With an investment of over 100 million euros, for example, the Film Museum digitized 20% of their collection, but due to copyright constraint, only 2% was made public, although local access was permissible. Closed collections entail perpetual high-cost maintenance, yet little civic value. This situation is compounded by the temporal nature of these archives, presenting custodians with significant further challenges to access. These are critical problems for what can be described as the major historical records of the 20th and 21st century. Based on EPFL's seminal UNESCO-listed Montreux Jazz Archive, Jazz Luminaries cuts, remixes, and replays 5,400 artists and 13,000 videos from a total archive of 11,000 hours of video. In this neural net-like image that you see here, each node is an artist, and the link strength between the nodes is based on the number of times one artist played with another artist. I won't ask you to guess, but there is someone at the very center of this dense social network. B.B. King. Visitors lie under the dome and use a spherical interface to navigate this constellation, emulating the hemisphere of the full dome in which it's staged. The search paradigm is akin to tuning a radio, search by listening, circumventing the lack of public knowledge into who the jazz greats really are. So it's hearing what you like that drives the design to unfold in 3 layers, all the songs by that performer, and then the full song. It's a real 1970s vibe. In the Future Cinema Systems project with our Hong Kong partners, we're developing co-evolutionary narrative engines which comprise multi-participant interaction for 360-degree systems for the performing arts, archives, and cultural heritage. This new software framework will enable dynamic content in relation to multiple audience gestures, relationships, and interactions. In the multidisciplinary narratives from the Long Tail grant, we're developing interactive visualization frameworks for more than 200,000 hours of archival video from 4 major collections in Europe. Machine learning and computer vision is used to create narrative coherence across the spatial, temporal, social, affective, and aesthetic vectors in these massive archives. The 360-degree 3D narrative visualization engine is a scalable and participatory engagement model aimed to situate audiences and their experiences at the center of knowledge production while also stimulating innovative archival practices. We've worked for 2 full years already simply to build an ingestion system for massive archives with robust tools for vector extraction and automated transcription, using LLM, working far beyond the extant and often patchy metadata. The archive that I'm showing you here is the iMuseum's Mutoscope and Biography Company collection. The films are the oldest at the eye, dating to the late 1890s. Each is approximately 1 minute long, and it was shot on a very large format film, which was quickly outdated, but which yielded utterly spectacular images. 68mm is the equivalent of 16K IMAX in image quality, that even after 120 years, it's still one of the best that film can transmit. We're able to display it at full resolution. And I can't resist but to show you this small skit to raise your waning attention just before I close. This is the humor of the day. So the minute hand of the clock has been ticking through 45 revolutions since we began, albeit some of you, I'm sure, are experiencing time dilations. While I could go on in the digital transformation in museums and other areas that we work on, including intangible cultural heritage, emergent narrative, and visitor feedback, we've already arrived at the time for the revolution to come. Simply put, I believe we can envisage a computational museology which provides a scaffold to unite machine intelligence with data curation, ontology with visualization, and communities of publics and practitioners with embodied interaction through immersive interfaces. Computational museology empowers cultural organizations to link all forms of culture and materiality, objects, knowledge systems, representation, and participation. Thank you.
So, thank you so much. I'm just a simple text guy, so I'm really terrified of even starting the question session now, and I know we're all looking forward to the reception. And I also would hate to ask you for more after this tour de force, but I'm wondering, as somebody who, from what we know about, from what we text people know about art, is the question of framing, clear borders, things like that. And what you have shown us is really moving beyond that, with both with embedded virtual realities and things like that. But also towards the end of your talk, you mentioned intangible cultural heritage. And I'm wondering, how on earth would you do anything with it without turning it into, without framing it in a way that makes it an object?
So it was in 2003 that museums included intangible cultural heritage in their definition of museums. And this presented museums with a major conundrum, because documentation, as we traditionally think about it, is a linearizing process. It ossifies what is living. There were major philosophical concerns about how you might do that, but new computational techniques can help circumvent that. And we've been working for some years now, 12 years, on the Kung Fu archive in Hong Kong, so 33 elite members of South Chinese Kung Fu. We've had 9 exhibitions worldwide, and this is based on a massive reservoir of motion capture data. And motion capture sort of provides a continuous topological model which allows for the easier retainment of the affective qualities of motion. Brian Rotman talks about gestural haptic writing. These resulting visualizations are extremely palpable and effective in museum context. So this is one of the ways that we can start to break down this linearization of a living culture. We do whole of environment encoding, and actually Yuming, who's one of my PhD students who's here, will be giving her speech on Thursday, looking at ontologies she's developed for this massive archive. So that's one way to go about it. Pose matching is very popular, by the way. Yep.
Cool. All right. We started late, but I would love to hear 1 or 2 questions, if there are any. Please don't be intimidated by the number of people in this room. We have boxes with microphones that will be thrown around to the most daring among you. And you have to stand up because I wouldn't be able to see you. So please. I knew this would be a somebody. Oh, we have a brave one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the interesting talk. Actually, coming from the area of computer graphics and computer vision, and what I find very hard is the ability to connect people from a visual art to the people from computer science, and I see that you are doing this very well. Could you just elaborate about this collaboration?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've always seen that computer scientists are the absolute bedrock of what we are doing. So it's a relationship of appreciation. And in my laboratory, I actually employ 50% software engineers for computer graphics. And then we have machine learning guys and data scientists and so on and so forth. So I think if we're going to get anywhere, and the labs that I'm building are based on this relationship of transdisciplinarity or interdisciplinarity. And I mean, it's only some software engineers who want to get into our slightly idiosyncratic world, because it's an abundant world for them and they can go anywhere. Jobs abound in computer graphics today, and the ones that find their way to our laboratory are very special characters who are interested in this kind of work. So I deeply appreciate them. We put together a lot of interdisciplinary grants, and there aren't so many truly interdisciplinary grants that understand the dynamics of what's involved. And so we spend a lot of time working on that aspect. So multidisciplinary teams, loads of collaborators around the world, and a big network.
Go ahead. Here.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
Good catch.
Thank you very much for your talk. And I would like to ask you, you mentioned blockchain. Tell us a little bit more about it. How do you want to use it?
Okay, so I mentioned it twice. Once in connection with cryptocurrency, and once in connection with the new India project that we're doing with IIT. And there it's really looking at developing for the custodians of these sensational objects a safe mechanism for sharing them on the blockchain, smart contracts mostly, and to encourage, I mean, there's lots to be said about data sovereignty and different things, but this is a project to enable them to feel secure that if they release this material into the world, because they own now very powerful digital twins, that they will be secured in that on the network. So that's kind of as simple as it is. There are big problems in the blockchain in terms of, I mean, there's the energy problem of the blockchain, which is getting better. There's also the size limitation of objects which are distributed through non-fungible tokens, which are part of it. So there's all sorts of constraints that we need to work out when we do that project.
Okay, one more. There in the back.
They're very patient.
Thank you so much. It was mind-blowing. I'm an art historian. I work in South Asia, so it was fascinating to see the work that you're doing in India. And just a question about, with the AI, a lot of people, especially artists, actually have concerns about their work being taken advantage of. And I guess what you just answered about blockchain, I guess addresses some of that concern about things being bastardized through sort of just, I guess, I wonder how you actually navigate the tension between making this sort of universally available and just fantastic ways of sharing knowledge, and then also kind of protecting creative, I guess, intentions of people who are making them, and also even sort of in terms of cultural heritage, the case that you're just talking about in terms of people worrying about this being, again, just utilizing in not the most beneficial ways.
Yeah, sure. Yes, thank you. I mean, I think you can have both. I think you can use AI-type technologies for creative work. I really believe that, and I'm very interested in using them. And we dabble in that, and also the way it enables a certain amount of playfulness inside museums. This panorama generator project is quite hilarious, actually. And there's another version which is even more crazy. But in terms of protecting artists who have put material online, or protecting custodians of major cultural objects who may or may not have intentionally put this stuff online, I think this is an area where the blockchain has import, and as you described. So I think it's both things at once. There's so many crazy things happening with copyright now, you know, with Getty suing Stable Diffusion and so on and so forth, where people who have appropriated archives are then suing for the ownership of those archives, people that have appropriated their archives. You know, it's really becoming a very messy legal battle. And probably it's the economics of the situation that will drive the outcome rather than the equitable justice. So, yeah. Thank you.
Right. If I'm seeing, I think we can I think we can all thank Sarah once again for a fabulous talk. Thank you so much. And you are all cordially invited to the reception, which will be downstairs. So let's party.